Flats cutting off all exits for a mother and her children.
I thought we were going to die. I thought we were going to die.
Two construction workers are crushed as huge concrete supports collapse around them.
I remember at one stage saying, look, were we looking at amputation?
A train crashes into the barriers at Cannon Street Station. A commuter is pinned to the roof of his carriage.
It's excruciating pain, and all you really wanted to see was to get out. People were crying, get me out, get me out.
And firefighters deal with the deadly hazard of exploding gas cylinders.
It was akin to a nuclear bomb.
Real stories, real people, real rescues on the real London's Burning.
Hello and welcome to the real London's Burning. Every day the capital's firefighters rush to more than 500 emergencies, and sometimes they film their actions on camera. In tonight's programme we're going to be bringing you some of their amazing stories.
Construction worker TJ and his colleague Dennis are crushed from the waist down after an accident building a new road tunnel. It's a rescue that will test firefighters' ingenuity to the limit.
I was in between two girders breaking out concrete. I says to Dennis, I says, what time is it? And the next thing, I just heard him saying, help, help.
Without warning, the concrete they'd been standing on had collapsed. Both TJ and Dennis were trapped and in danger.
When we actually arrived in the site, it was a scene of total confusion.
It seemed as if every worker on the building site was actively involved around this area. It was like a load of ants running around.
Trying to work out how it actually happened. All I could see was the two upper torsos sticking out of the concrete block.
With the blood supply to their legs cut off, it was imperative that rescue teams worked quickly.
Their legs were compressed into a space of roughly about 4 inches, 3 to 4 inches, about the width of a Coke can.
Personally speaking, I thought I was going to go. I thought I was dead, really. Worst scenario, I thought I would have lost the 2 legs.
I remember at one stage saying, look, you know, what are medical options available here? Because this is going to take us, you know, a reasonable amount of time to actually do what we need to do to get these people out. Were we looking at amputation?
Both medical teams weren't entirely sure if the legs could be saved.
The doctor on the scene at the time, he says to me, he says, listen, he says, you're making too much noise. He says, calm yourself down.
They were in a severe amount of pain, and obviously they were trying to alleviate their pain by giving them painkilling gas, that sort of stuff, and injections as well.
The main guy, the fireman, said, it's my job to get you out, and he says, I'm going to do that job. Rest assured, I will have you home for Christmas.
But the rescue was fraught with difficulties.
If the jacks weren't working in tandem, there was a chance that the concrete block would have moved sideways.
I had to stand on the top of the block with a megaphone and call out to the 2 crews that were working below.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Still. Any movement there? Can we get them out?
Every count was actually a stroke on the jack. 10 strokes on the jack was roughly equivalent to about 2 inches of movement.
Eventually, after nearly 90 minutes, Dennis was free.
They took Dennis out, and Dennis, to me, he looked very, very weak. And I says to Dennis, I says, I'll see you later. I didn't know whether I'd see him later in this life or later in the next world.
But there were more anxious minutes before TJ was finally lifted to safety.
I can remember 3 or 4 fire brigade men picking me up. I had no feeling whatsoever, so if they touched my legs, I had absolutely no feeling whatsoever.
Yes, get the blood running now. Okay.
Once they were out, it was almost a big cheer, but nobody actually did stand up and start screaming and shouting, but you did feel it inside.
The most overriding thing that I have is standing back on the block itself with a megaphone, looking at what's going on, and then seeing one of the injured workers looking up and seeing his face, making eye contact with him. And it was as much as if he said, oh, come on, mate, please get me out of here. please, please get me out, you know, I'm in pain, just get us out.
Absolutely, I think myself 110% lucky to be alive. 150% to the fire brigade that got me out. I'm here, and the fire brigade have done a tremendous job and absolutely brilliant.
If you're scared of heights, then don't apply to become a firefighter. Some of the ladders extend to 100 feet, and you not only have to be able to go up them, you have to be able to come down them, carrying somebody you've rescued over your shoulder. I'm on the 5th floor of a training tower, about to be rescued by the guys in that.
Now, when am I supposed to tell them I'm scared of heights?
This is the bit I'm really looking forward to, of course. Thank goodness I've got my safety harness on. Ooh. Okay. Right. Oh my God. Don't look down. This is like one of those horrible funfair rides, isn't it? Oh, I hate it when he does that. Oh, he's only doing that to annoy me, isn't he? He's only doing that to make it really horrible. I tell you what, this is pretty scary, and it's not even an emergency. But for the people of Selsdon Court in West London, a high-rise housing estate, it was all too real. They had to escape from the worst residential fire in London since the Second World War.
Fire brigade. There's a fire! There's a fire outside our door! It may be a threat. Yeah? It may be a threat. Go quick! And I'll wait now, okay?
On the way to the court, we were informed by our control that there were people phoning up and stating that they were trapped in their flats.
What is on fire? No, I can't open the front door. I was watching Coronation Street and I put the children to bed about between 7 and half 7. And I noticed there was smoke in the air, but I didn't think much of it because the guy next door was always cooking and burning his food.
I was cooking in the kitchen for Shelby. I was cooking her dinner, and I came into the living room, and when I passed back, I could actually see smoke coming through the front door.
When we arrived at the incident, it was obvious that there was a large fire in progress in the roof. I don't believe that a lot of the people at that time had actually realised that they were in the danger that they were in.
When I went to the front door, it was just thick black smoke, and there was, you know, slight panic in my mind, and I couldn't think of any way to get out. So the only thing that I could think of at the time was, like, you know, to start tying sheets and blankets together.
The smoke was such that the only way we could get into the building without, or to some of the flats without breathing apparatus, was to go in literally laying down on our stomachs and crawling on our stomachs with our noses flat to the floor. Members of the public aren't going to do that because, for a start, they're petrified the fact they're trapped in the fire anyway.
I thought we were going to die. I thought we were going to die. Because there was no way out, see? That is the only way out.
What Debbie didn't know was that the fire was raging directly over her head, and as these thermal images from the police helicopter show, it was rapidly spreading out of control.
The fire seems to have progressed very fast, and I personally went up the scaffolding, and but already debris and was falling down, and it was a bit, you know, we couldn't use that as a means to get out.
With the roof in danger of collapse, firefighters had to put aside any personal danger and quickly get the people out.
It was only like 2 or 3 minutes, and the fireman had come up to the window, and I passed Shelby straight to the fireman, who started off down the ladder, and I followed him straight out the window and down the ladder. And I could see my next-door neighbour still in her top floor flat, looking out of the window, you know, waiting to be rescued.
With Paul and Shelby safely on the ground, firefighters returned to rescue Debbie and her children, only to discover to their horror that the ladders wouldn't reach.
When I realised the ladder was too short, I thought, how the hell are we going to get down here?
It was a case of getting her to have the courage to hold the child and have me take the child off of her. And she's literally dangling the child out the window.
When he explained to me what I had to do with the children, take them by their wrists and put them out the window, and he would take them by their ankles and position them on the ladder, I was frightened because I didn't want to drop them. Never held on to my children so tight in all my life. The baby was took down first, but he carried Shauna down, and Billy was screaming.
The child was in a very distressed state and started kicking and shouting and punching the air and anything else that was in the way. And the embers were alight and in his head, and just had to keep moving, get down as quickly as possible.
For the time for me to go out, I had a fireman in the bedroom with me, and he asked me if I wanted to go out by the window or by the corridor. But he said, if you go by corridor, if you fall over, he said, I'll drag you. And I said, no, I said, I'll go out the window. So that's what he did with me as well. He held me by my wrists and dangled me out the window for the fireman to grab my ankles and position me on the ladder and took me down the ladder.
At the time, my youngest child was about the same size and very similar looking to the child, and it was, you know, you could sort of feel for her, and I think it makes you, you hold on to them very tightly.
We'd have been there 5 or 10 minutes longer, and I don't think we would have got out of that fire, because by the time I got out of the window, the whole bedroom was engulfed, the whole bedroom.
That night, I genuinely believed that there were going to be serious injuries, if not deaths, to the public and to my colleagues.
Firefighters did manage to rescue everybody. 100 people were made homeless. Arson was suspected, but no one was found guilty.
If you live in a high-rise block and are ever unfortunate enough to be caught in a fire, this is what you should do.
Most importantly, phone 999 and give clear instructions of where you are. If you're trapped by fire, shut all the doors and place a damp towel under the gaps to stop the smoke from entering. Stay low to the floor. Open a window and make your position known to the emergency services. But before you get into that situation, make sure that your smoke alarm is in working order. They do save lives. In 1997, an airliner with 300 passengers was forced to make an emergency landing when the left main undercarriage jammed up. How do firefighters learn how to deal with emergencies like this? Charlie State's been finding out.
This is Heathrow Airport. Planes land and take off here at speeds of up to 300 miles an hour. At busy times, a plane takes off every 40 seconds. Now, that's a real challenge for the fire crews who work here.
To help them, they use one of the biggest and most state-of-the-art aeroplane fire simulators in the world. It's based at Heathrow and can create an endless number of fire scenarios to prepare firefighters for any emergency, even fires inside. And every week, the airport's own firefighters and the London Fire Brigade join forces to practice.
Right, training aims today, gents. The aim of the fire service is to save life and protect property. And in the event of an aircraft incident, we're going to knock down the fire, protect the fuselage, to enable self-evacuation of the passengers. Does everybody understand? Are you all fit and able to take part in the drill? Okay, gentlemen, take your positions, please.
As the firefighters prepare, I find out more about what they'd be facing.
Ken, you're the station officer. You're in charge today. Tell us what we're going to see.
What you're going to see today is a number 3 engine fire on our training rig.
And it can get pretty dramatic. There is a lot of heat, a lot of flames.
There's a lot of heat, a lot of flames, a lot of water, a lot of noise, but it's very realistic.
Within seconds, the wing is engulfed in flames. Temperatures soon reach 1,000 degrees centigrade. If this was a real plane, then lives would be at risk, and every second counts. It's a race against time to battle the fire. The first vehicle on scene immediately starts to spray foam at the fire, but it only has enough water to make foam for 3 minutes, so every drop has to be directed in the right place. Other engines rush to some of the many fire hydrants on the airfield to ensure water is always available to help extinguish the inferno. It's a demanding and physical challenge for the crews, but within 4 minutes the fire is brought under control. If it were a real emergency, the passengers would have made it.
Now, Heathrow has an amazing track record, safety record. Presumably, the training is all important in case something does go wrong.
That's right, because the incidents are very rare.
should an incident occur, we need to be ready so that we can deal with the incident efficiently and quickly.
Even though it looked dramatic, no one was killed or seriously injured in this incident. Thanks to fire brigade training and the pilot's skill, a major disaster was averted.
After the break, an illegal storage of gas cylinders catches fire, turning a street into the Blitz. A woman lies trapped under the wheels of a tube train. How do firefighters learn to deal with these underground rescues? And a chip pan fire turns a family home into a scene of total destruction. Still to come on The Real London's Burning.
The closest shave is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Mach 3. Easy loading, easy rinsing, and 3 blades that shave closer in one easy stroke. It's the easiest way to the closest shave. Mach 3 from Gillette.
Okay, it's fastest finger first.
Julie, you've got to do it. It's now or never.
I want to, but I'm afraid.
Don't worry, I'll be right here with you. You'll be fine. Just hold on tight.
Got another?
Dr. Pepper. Okay. To try it is to love it.
Freshness sensations from our unique built-in conditioner. Bowls bound to give you a buzz.
Natural, not too perfect. Full and curly. Beautiful hair is a matter of opinion. How you get it is a matter of fact. It starts with healthy-looking hair, the kind you get from Pantene shampoo, conditioners and styling products. They give hair all it needs to be beautiful, whatever that is. Love your hair, Pantene.
This is Ronseal Floor Shades, and these are my old floorboards. Ronseal Floor Shades is the easiest way to transform your floorboards because it colours like paint and protects like varnish. Give it a quick sand and brush on. So if you want your old floorboards to look great, use Ronseal Floor Shades. Ronseal. It does exactly what it says on the tin.
Sometimes doing nothing is absolutely the right decision to make. Whereas sometimes, of course, it isn't. If you don't call Direct Line and see just how much they could save you on your car insurance, then that could be the wrong decision. So don't just stand there, call Direct Line. You could save yourself a lot of money. And the cover's quite good too. Hello, Direct Line.
New! Did I say new? I said new! Thank you, tree ball.
Thank you. Hi.
Black cabs
I told you to shut up and move your cab.
versus the mini cabs. Cabbies in combat.
Hello, are you guys?
Taxi Wars, Monday at 8 on 5.
This doesn't look lethal, does it? But chip pans are responsible for more fires in homes in the UK than anything else. In 1997, there were 12,000 of them and 46 people died. The Spick family had a very narrow escape.
It's something we all dread, coming home to find your house is on fire. It happened to Dean Spick after he left his house for just 10 minutes.
I opened the front door and there was like a smoky smell coming from our house up the top, And so I rushed up the stairs, and to my surprise was a chip pan ablaze on the cooker.
After throwing a damp towel over the pan, Dean attempted to carry the boiling fat through the sitting room and out onto the balcony.
When I walked through the front room, one of the tea towels caught alight, and then it just ignited even more, and I walked about 10 yards with the chip pan alight.
But with the tea towel ignited and boiling fat spilling onto the carpet and furniture, the fire spread rapidly. Dean was also badly burnt.
The hand in his arm was burnt, so he had an outside tap, cold tap, so I stuck his hand under that. But he didn't actually say what had happened. You know, he just said he burnt the carpet. The flames were actually going up each side of the door. The curtains were alight, wallpaper was being burnt off the wall. I realised, you know, I had to do something quick.
By the time the fire brigade arrived, the fire was raging.
We were basically down on our hands and knees. We carried on into the lounge, where we discovered that the room was alight. We got it under control quite quickly, but the damage was quite horrendous.
Living room was gutted, absolutely gutted. Furniture was burned, carpet burned, everything. I mean, there wasn't really much left.
There was just ashes where there were ornaments. Just melted the telly into a ball.
It was only after the fire had been put out that Dean and Ray remembered the family cat was missing.
The gentleman involved said that he thought his cat was in there. We re-entered the building, found his cat in one of the bedrooms, got our resuscitation equipment off the fire engine and basically done what we do to a human, which was try to resuscitate it. And after about 3 or 4 minutes, the cat come round. It's quite amazing, really, but there you are.
Silly little things. I mean, I was so pleased. I mean, you know, my place had burnt down, and, you know, I had this big smile on my face, this big, burly fireman with this tiny little cat. You know, you think to yourself, oh, well, life ain't that bad after all, like, you know. When I think about it, obviously I thank God that nobody was that seriously hurt, but you can't help feeling a bit sad of everything, what you've worked for, suddenly go up in smoke in a matter of minutes.
If you've got a chip pan alight, if you cannot turn the heat off and cover it with a damp cloth, then leave it where it is. Do not try to move it. Shut the kitchen door, tell everybody in the premises that there is a fire, get everybody out and call the fire brigade and we'll deal with it.
I look back at the fire and I just think I am so lucky to still be here. I've been scarred for the rest of my life from a chip pan fire, and I would never use a chip pan again in my entire life.
And if you decide you want to get rid of your old chip pan, then your local fire service will be glad to dispose of it for you. Now to some of the more unusual emergencies that the London Fire Brigades attended.
A sweet factory in Hackney. A man has fallen into an industrial-sized mixer. His hand is being mangled between the sharp blades. Firefighters are called in. After 2 hours of sawing, he's finally pulled out and airlifted to hospital to have emergency medical treatment. A 42-inch water main bursts in West Hampstead. Firefighters have to rescue people trapped on the top floors of their homes. Hundreds of gallons of water have made the street a river. Fortunately, everybody is rescued. 6 workers have to run for their lives when a cement mixer falls over 100 feet down a building shaft. Emergency services are amazed to find the driver has survived the fall and spend the night cutting him free. After a lengthy and dangerous rescue, the man is eventually released and rushed to hospital.
There are certain things unique to London. The tube, for example. Every day, 3 million of us use it, and it's an extremely safe way to travel. But just occasionally, things do go wrong. Charlie State has been finding out how firefighters train to deal with accidents on the underground.
A person is trapped under a tube train, a potentially lethal situation. One-unders, as they've become known, are an almost daily occurrence on London's underground system. For firefighters, it's a race against time. The victim's losing blood and paramedics don't know how long they've got. Firefighters work quickly and fortunately this passenger was rescued alive.
An underground carriage like this one weighs some 40 tons. In the tube network, it's travelling at around 30 miles an hour. That's a lot of weight and a lot of speed. When it comes into a station, if there's a body on the track, it's a dangerous and possibly deadly situation. Well, that's why fire officers come to a place like this. This is the London Underground Training Centre, and they come here to have scenarios set for them, see how they'll cope. Mark is the officer in charge today. Right. Tell us what we're going to see.
Well, basically, we simulated a person underneath one of our trains. We've got one of the fire rescue units coming today for training, and they're basically going to go through the procedures for safely jacking the train up to retrieve the person. And that's all they're going to do today. OK, I know they're ready to go, so we're going to have a way. Ready. Yep. We can have a look.
So if you want to put the wedges in.
When someone does become trapped under the rails, it's crucial they're released as quickly and safely as possible. So it's important in this training session they get to grips with the jacking technique before they're working on a live casualty.
Okay.
Charlie, if I can trouble you for a moment, tell me what the principle has happened so far.
Okay, we've got a casualty stuck under. He's actually caught under one of the wheels. We jack in two places to make sure the carriage stays level. As you can see, the two people jacking in time to make sure everything goes completely level and smooth.
It's moving up very, very slowly, isn't it?
Yeah, we take our time, make sure everything's done slowly but done properly. It reduces the risk of anything, any accidents, anything going wrong. We have a packer either side. As you can see, they're putting pieces of wood on top of each other to the level of the wheel to keep the. If anything fails, if anything slips, then the carriage isn't going to fall all the way down. It's only going to fall down as far as the next piece of packing.
And how does it compare with the real situation? Because I know you've been in a few of these yourself.
Yeah, obviously, rest. Keep going a little bit further. We need to get a little bit more on the left-hand side. Yeah.
So the rolling stops and I'll just carry on this side.
Yeah.
Okay.
As far as realism, we can make it as realistic as possible in training exercises like this. We know exactly what our roles are and the procedures and the safety aspects, etc.
Okay. Now I see they've stopped pumping. Now does that mean you've got the clear?
Yeah, we've raised the carriage about 3 inches, which now is enough to release the casualty. So you can remove the jacking bars. And the casualty is now ready to be released.
So at this point, someone goes in and tries to get the casualty out?
Yeah, it's a combination of ourselves and the paramedics. Remove the casualty to an area where we can then take him up to the ambulance ready to be taken away.
Right, any problems?
No, not at all.
I don't know how long you think that took.
Couldn't be that long, could it? About 20 minutes or something?
From the moment you started jacking, it was about 15 minutes, which again, the problem is, of course, getting your gear to site in the first place. OK? Was it nice and cold under there, was it?
Oh, lovely, yeah. Beautiful conditions.
Please bear in mind the problems you've also got, as we've been through before, if you're under a train, it will be warm.
Yeah.
All right? So the idea is that we don't have more than one casualty, so bear that in mind. Basically, from what I saw, it was a good job, well done.
It's training like that that helped firefighters rescue John Greeno when he fell under a train in South London whilst running to catch it.
Just as I arrived on the platform, the train started to move, but I decided I could probably get on. However, having opened the door, my foot slipped and my legs went through the gap between the train and the platform, but the train was still moving. My first thought was, you're dead. And when I realised that I actually wasn't, I knew that I shortly would be unless I got out of the way. When the train finally stopped, the approaching wheels were probably within 15 feet of where I was sitting.
When I got to the casualty and I found out his name, he told me his name was John, and I introduced myself to him. I then made sure I had physical contact with him, so I held his hand.
But the challenge of rescuing John from such a confined area would not be easy.
Our main problem was that he was actually between the nearest rail to the platform and the platform, which in itself for a person on the train is quite unusual. So we were limited in what we could do initially.
The difficulties of the rescue were made worse by John's serious condition.
My left foot was twisted outwards at 90 degrees to my left leg.
Having sort of stabilised John and worked with the medical team and put him in the specialist stretcher which we were carrying, we were able to move him very slowly. Now, this meant moving him perhaps 6 inches at a time, which in those cramped conditions was very difficult.
Inch by inch, firefighters carried John to safety.
Once John had been passed out to our colleagues, we were obviously relieved to come out into the open air and stand up, have a stretch and get some fresh air.
They carried me across the adjoining track and onto a waiting trolley.
We continued across up onto the platform with him, and I maintained contact with John. And whilst he was being treated on the platform by the medical team, I was still there talking to him, still maintaining physical contact, because the rescue isn't necessarily over as soon as the person's released. So I stayed with him until he was taken off to the ambulance.
John Greeno says he learnt his lesson the hard way.
It's made me very much more aware that boarding moving trains is not a wise thing to do.
My message to John and to anybody else would be, it's not worth the hassle. Wait for the next train and explain to the boss that you missed the train.
But nothing can prepare you for the horror of full-scale disasters.
In 1991, a commuter train carrying 1,000 people crashed into Cannon Street Station. 542 passengers were injured, and Paul Chaplin was the last person to be rescued.
I was on my way to work. There's nothing different from any other working day. The train was coming into Cannon Street Station. I was folding up my newspaper in readiness to get off the train when I heard this almighty bang. It all happened pretty much in a split second, but I found myself jammed solid up into the ceiling amongst all the luggage racks of the train. I could hear screaming. I could see that a lot of people were in a lot of pain and trapped, and all you really wanted to see was the fire brigade to turn up to get you out. My arm was locked up into the carriage, and it was excruciating pain. It was a case of get me out, get me out.
His right arm was pushed up in a Z fashion, and a piece of carriage was actually going through one side, not through the flesh, but actually pinning the whole arm together, and the weight of the carriage and everything was actually keeping him pinned. By looking at it, it wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be like 5 minutes to get him out. No way.
Paul wasn't the only person who was trapped. Other people had their legs and feet sandwiched between crushed pieces of metal.
There was various persons that were quite obviously seen as being trapped by the lower limbs where the floor had given way. So we just sort of went underneath the train and just got to work really on the legs and so on. There was quite a lot of blood dripping through from the carriage above, and we were concerned with which casualty was actually losing blood. And I can remember a point where we actually removed a couple of shoes and tickled their feet, just to try and work out whose limbs belonged to who.
A fireman crawled in next to me, he talked to me and told me, we'll have you out.
Firefighter Mick Batchelor's job was to reassure Paul.
I found out his name was Paul and that he lived at Bromley, and we were just, you know, just chatting, just trying to keep him awake, if anything.
But Paul was still stuck fast, and emergency teams were worried that he may not get out in one piece.
The surgeon here, he was a little bit anxious, and at one stage I think he did indicate that he may be intending to amputate. And it was just said to him, or put to him, if you give us 10 more minutes, we'll have him out.
I could hear a paramedic saying, we'll give you 10 more minutes. That was enough to say, look, you're not taking my arm off. You cut somewhere else. You cut this timber. I started to try, if I could, to direct people to say, look, cut somewhere else. Get something else, but get me out. Don't take my arm off.
Firefighters made a last-minute attempt to save Paul's arm.
It was just a matter of cutting probably 2 pieces of metal underneath, which we'd finally got to, which allowed the whole side of the carriage to be pulled away. And once that was pulled away, he was out.
To be taken out was fabulous. I was so pleased to get out of that train.
It makes me feel good because at the end of the day, whatever way you look at it, his wife's still got an husband and his family, his kids have still got a father. And that's the bottom line. I mean, and that's what basically we're all here for.
Having a fireman with you all the time to endeavour to get you out is great, and I owe Mick Batchelor, as well as the rest of the fire crew who were on that particular shout, a great deal of debt.
When firefighters get called out to an emergency, one of the things they fear the most is that it's going to involve these industrial-sized gas cylinders, which when heated up are extremely volatile, like unexploded bombs. Just look at the explosions in a controlled test. Fragments fly in all directions, and these are only small camping gas containers. So you can imagine how the firefighters felt when they were called to a fire at a gas bottle storage company.
Knowing the area reasonably well, I knew there was no North Thames Gas or British Gas works anywhere in the area, so I knew that we didn't have a natural gas explosion down there.
One's first thoughts would be that maybe there's a house involved, possibly an item within the house that's just gone pop.
I could see a large column of black smoke going up, and the smoke continually being punctuated by bright orange balls of flame that was going through the fire. You could actually see the cylinders coming out of the site and landing in the street surrounding.
When they arrived on the scene, they found it wasn't a house fire, but an illegal gas bottle depot that had gone up in flames.
If you could imagine that every time there was a bang, the actual ground shook, the whole area shook, and these explosions were going off. At one stage, it appeared every 10 seconds.
The situation was highly dangerous. The cylinders were being propelled at great speed and with tremendous force in all directions.
The problem was, of course, is that people actually running away from the fire could in fact have been struck by a cylinder that came down and sort of hit them as they ran away. So in fact, being near to the fire, they could have in fact been possibly safer by the fact that the cylinders were going over the top of their head, but we just didn't have any guarantee of where these cylinders were going to go. Some only travelled a few feet and landed in people's back gardens, others travelled a quarter of a mile.
And suddenly, without warning, things took a turn for the worse.
If we thought that the ones that was happening beforehand were pretty powerful, the large one was intense, and it was akin to, in my eyes, a nuclear bomb.
It looked just like a bomb, and that's exactly what it looked like. You imagine a scene in the war of a bright orange explosion and a cloud of black smoke going up, and that's exactly what happened.
On the explosion, a cylinder had whistled between two fire engines, of which I was crossing to get length of hose, and it punched a hole into a building across the way. It still had enough energy to bounce back off the building and scuffer or gouge out a bit of tarmac before hitting me and knocking me under the fire engine. I don't remember any of that or even seeing any of that because it happens in that intense moment.
With a combination of luck and skill, it took more than 3 hours for the blaze to be brought under control.
Despite the frustrations of not being able to get in the early stages and fight the fire, the fact we contained it to the actual yard and the damage that we did actually contain it to, I think was a job very well done.
Looking back on the day, I certainly feel that I, coupled with a lot of other firefighters on the day, were very lucky to be alive.
After the break, how firefighters are taught not to do this on the way to a real emergency. How a small candle turned a home into an inferno.
I went out one day and then went back the next day and I was completely homeless with no possessions.
And how firefighters rescue a lost and injured dolphin.
Beware the jadder man, my dear, when the moon is fat. Sharp of tongue and spindle-limbed he is, and cunning. With sweetened talk of schnapps and mets and the deliciousness of jadders. Beware the jadder man, my dear, when the moon is fat. Jadder med de mets och schnapps.
Homebase are hammering down prices.
Prices hammered, Leslie.
We're hammering up to 20% off the price of all lawnmowers.
Hammered? Ooh. And these? Oh,
We're hammering up to 20% off the price of all bath suites.
Great prices.
They've been hammered.
And we're hammering up to half price off all laminate flooring.
Price hammered. Price hammered. 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 Hammered.
With prices hammered right around the store, you're better off at Homebase.
Cheese and tomato, and without the cheese or tomato. Ah, the internet. God's way of telling you you should get out more often. Still, it's not all cyber geeks and girls with their tops off. Apparently, you can buy things on it. Books, hats, chocolate, anything. A bit like a shop, really. So, you won't be staggered to learn that the smart way to buy on the internet is with your Barclay card. You're guaranteed against fraud, so some 12-year-old hacker won't spend your money on whatever it is 12-year-old hackers spend their money on. And just like in the real world, it's accepted all over the World Wide Web. So, no change there then. This internet thing's a lot of fuss about nothing, isn't it? Still, at least it allows you to go shopping when it's raining. A bit like an umbrella, really.
Slow down, little less gas. Watch your bend.
Enemies now at Bravo.
Get
Drop
off
off
the
Charlie.
Kill the lights. Get through the trees, go left. Dead ahead, dead ahead. Right.
Open your eyes to pure comfort with Transitions lenses. The lenses that change tint when you need them to. Ask your optician for Transitions.
Transitions. Love your eyes.
If it's a slip disc, you ought to get it looked at, dear.
McVitie's Jaffa Cakes, deliciously self-centered.
Some cars used to be such a waste of space. Nooks and crannies all over the shop. So those know-alls at Vauxhall thought, why not take all this useless space and make it useful? And by using computer technology, they believe their range of Vauxhall estates have done just that. And yes, they're very spacious, because inside here isn't. But look, still lots of room for improvement.
Vauxhall, raising the standard.
When they're answering 999 calls, drivers like Paul here have to have eyes in the back of their heads. They not only have to get to the fires safely, but quickly. And that means knowing how other drivers on the road are going to react to them. To find out how they do that, Charlie State reports.
What you're looking at now is fire engine driving school. This is Wethersfield Airfield in Essex, and this is where fire officers come to learn how to drive these 10-ton trucks at almost 70 miles an hour, and things can get pretty hairy.
Today, David, the instructor, is working with two rookie drivers, Jim and Martin. They'll be learning in this specially modified vehicle, designed to test them to the limit. It'll create the worst possible scenarios they could face on the road. Martin is the first in the driver's seat.
Okay, David, you've got your box of tricks there. Explain what you're going to do and how it's going to work.
With the frame on the front of the vehicle, I'm going to hire the front of the vehicle by just turning that little button there up.
And you can see that raising on the piston there?
Yeah, until I've got absolutely no traction on the front of the vehicle whatsoever.
So that's completely going to alter the way the vehicle handles?
That's right.
And these guys are going to try and control it?
I hope so.
OK, let's see how it works. You hop in, I'll get in the back.
OK.
The first challenge for Martin is roundabout handling, where David recreates the slippery road conditions caused by rain and ice.
A little bit faster. Watch that slippery bit on the corner there. Look, I told you about that earlier on.
As David applies his box of tricks, Martin gets his first taste of losing control.
Right, hold it there. Don't go on the wrong one.
But after practice, Martin's already getting the hang of it.
Good reactions that time. And we'll hold it there then, and we'll have a change of drivers.
Next up, it's Jim. For him, a chance to see how good his braking reactions are.
The centre cone is going to simulate little Johnny, OK? He's just stepped out between two parked cars. So, when you're ready, off you go. Right, left! He's going straight to the morgue, I'm afraid. You've killed him. Back to the start point then. It was a little bit late on the brakes, right? And you've got to really apply it so we start sliding in a straight line, and then before we hit little Johnny, come off. Brake right!
Now, you've got the big one coming up now, which is where you're going to... it's total loss. Explain what the idea is with this one.
I think the idea is just to show us what it's like to completely lose control of the vehicle. And obviously, it doesn't matter what you do. You can put full lock on either way, brake, anything.
As Martin speeds up, they're running at over 60 miles an hour. David unexpectedly disengages wheel control, leaving Martin spinning up the runway. Only by losing control can they fully understand the complexities of driving fire engines at speed. Today, both drivers pass with flying colours.
This is the headquarters of the London Fire Brigade, where all of London's 999 calls are answered, 90% within 20 seconds. The trouble is, sometimes they get overloaded with unnecessary or hoax calls.
In 1996, when the NatWest Tower had a small fire, there were more than 500 calls. People could see the smoke from all over the city, but when they phoned, couldn't give an exact location. And don't make hoax calls. There are new ways of tracing hoax callers, and the penalty is a £2,500 fine and 3 months in prison.
In recent years, these have been some of the biggest fires in London.
A massive blaze erupts in a paint factory in Beckenham, which is seen many miles away. Tins of paint explode into the sky, creating a real hazard for firefighters. It takes 15 fire engines and a staggering 9 days to completely put the blaze out. 40 vehicles and a huge stack of lorry tyres are ablaze at a salvage plant in Dagenham. It takes 70 firefighters all night to bring the fire under control. Residents in North London have to be evacuated as flames sweep through this massive warehouse. Firefighters run for their lives as the roof above them collapses. But within 5 hours, the fire is out. There's little left of this warehouse in Deptford as it's engulfed by fire. Firefighters battle through the night to try to save some of the building. Investigators believe it's been started deliberately.
Deadly house fires can be caused by something as small as this little nightlight. In fact, candles cause 2,000 house fires a year in London.
It was Saturday evening, so we were all just Saturday evening stuff, getting ready to go out.
The girl we were living with had a few friends around drinking wine and had the candles on before she was due to go out. Me and Ed had been invited to a party, so we got changed, basically went out about 7 o'clock down on my motorbike down to South London.
But a nightlight had been left burning on top of the record player.
I got a phone call at about 4:30 in the morning, and because we were at a party, everybody was still up drinking, etc. He said, "Carl, sit down wherever you are," and I instantly thought that something really bad had happened. And I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is it? And he said, "It's a 12, mate."
When we arrived, the flames were actually punching out all the windows on the first floor. Bright orange and 6 or 7 foot high, and they were stretching up towards the second floor level.
Nothing could prepare the boys for what they saw next.
We walked up the street, and the first thing we sort of saw were these black windows
realisation of it didn't hit until we walked through the door.
We opened the door and thought, oh, it can't be that bad, and then walked into the lounge.
The living room was basically reduced to a brick shell. I went out one day and I was doing fine, finishing my degree, 4 weeks to go, and then went back the next day and I was completely homeless with no possessions.
It was complete devastation, really, of the flat. Although nearly 80% of the building had been saved by the good work of the crews, the flat itself was extensively damaged.
Where there was a marble fireplace that had exploded, no windows, nothing, absolutely nothing. Everything was, even the plaster had come off the walls. Everything just destroyed.
We called in the fire investigation team, the specialist fire investigators, and once they sifted through the rubbish and the debris of the fire, it didn't take them very long to actually realise that this could have been caused by a candle.
I spoke to the fire crew and they said what could have caused it, and when the girls had turned up, the girls said that they had candles on before they went out.
The nightlight candle had burned through the stereo, and that's how the fire had started.
You can't think one little candle can completely gut your house.
Candles are safe if they're used correctly. If you're going to use candles, you should never leave them unattended anyway. But specifically, they shouldn't be placed directly onto plastic.
This fire brigade footage shows just how deadly candles can be. Within minutes, the candle starts to burn through the television, and then...
This is the most unusual fire engine in the capital. It's used to ferry firefighters and equipment to an incident anywhere along the Thames. It's also used for river rescues, the oddest of which, at least for firefighter Jeff Bull, was saving a dolphin which had swum up from the sea and lost its way.
I come across and I look down and there's a dolphin.
With the tide out, Jeff was able to wade into the water and up to the animal.
We had to support it to keep it virtually afloat, if you like, but to keep it submerged so that it could take water through it to keep it, keep it alive, really.
But he knew it was in trouble by the feel of its skin.
You always believe or think that you're told that dolphin skin is always smooth. Well, possibly the amount of time that the dolphin had been in the water, it had been sort of burnt by different things, or the water situation didn't suit its skin, so it had sort of blisters and cracks in it and blemishes and that kind of thing.
A specialist sea life rescue unit from Windsor Safari Park was rushed to the scene.
They'd arranged to get a van up with all the special gear which they carry for dolphin rescues, and we carried it up and they looked after it and took it off. So that was the end of our particular dealings with the baby dolphin. Yeah.
But it's a memory Jeff will always treasure.
I've never rescued a dolphin before, and I shouldn't think I would ever rescue a dolphin again. It's something that will stick with me, you know. It's just one of those things, and I was there at the time.
And that's it from The Real London's Burning. But if you want to know any more about fire safety, then just contact your local fire and rescue service. Bye.
From factual fire to fictional police drama next week at this time, when a holidaying detective becomes embroiled in a brutal murder. Further details are seconds away.
When the search for peace turns to a disturbing death down under. Duggan, Death in Paradise, next Wednesday at 8 on 5.
Drugs, murder, bent police officers, a femme fatale. Tonight's thriller's got the lot, and it's next.
I'm looking over a tub of clover, a tub we all adore.
Spread it on soldiers, spread it on toast, spread it on sarnies that I love the most.
Clover is churned with fresh dairy ingredients, so it tastes and curls like butter.
We're looking over a tub of clover, a tub that we all
Is there a problem, officer?
I'm afraid there is, sir.
I wasn't speeding, was I?
No, sir. It's a little bit more serious than that, I'm afraid.
What is it?
It's my gas supplier.
What?
I just wanted to ask your advice.
OK, so your gas or electricity supplier isn't the most important thing in life. But you should know that MEB is changing its name to Empower.
Have you read it?
Yeah, not bad for a first one.
I could never write a book.
Of course you can.
I wouldn't know where to start. Go on a writing course. Yeah, with my 1.0 level in woodwork. You don't need qualifications to go on a course, just a bit of imagination. Not bad with words. Well, I wouldn't be here if you were. Actually, do you mind taking over for me?
With over 500,000 courses to choose from, you can learn anything you want. Just call Learn Direct and we'll help you find the course you're looking for.
I can't believe Jim kills her in the end.
He kills her in the end? Does he?
Phone Learn Direct on 0800 100 900.
At last we will have revenge.
The saga begins. The thrills never end. Star Wars Episode 1. The one to own on video.
Good evening. Here is the news. Dragon spotted inside Newcastle and Windsor. We have the pictures. Mayhem on our motorways. A full report. Gold rush fever hits Legoland. And finally, the stuntman that'll go to any lengths to get a laugh. Very funny.
Many designer names are included in the Boots Opticians half-price frame sale. See for yourself before they walk.
Tea?
Not the way you make it.
If you live in a hard water area, you'll be amazed at the difference a Brita water filter can make, because the Brita filter cartridge reduces the hardness that can leave fur in your kettle and a film on your tea.
That's a lovely cup of tea.
Wrong again. It's my lovely cup of tea.
Brita does wonders for water.
You put your faith in your husband. You put your trust in the law.
You don't kill somebody from the DA's office.
When you believe in the truth.
She doesn't deal with this. It will destroy her. Use your experience to get the truth out.
But the truth is hard to swallow.
Go back again and again until someone listens.
Tense, compelling drama.
She told us she killed Decker.
Rosanna Arquette in Defense of Murder, Monday at 9 on 5.
Tomorrow at 9, Charles Bronson, Jill Ireland and Rod Steiger in a tough action thriller, Love and Bullets. And tonight's film follows this.
It's almost 9 o'clock. I'm Andrea Catherwood. The Royal Ulster Constabulary has been awarded the George Cross by the Queen. It's the highest civilian award for bravery. The medal was accepted by a police constable who lost his legs in an IRA bomb attack.
There isn't a man and woman alive in this country who doesn't appreciate what we have tried to do. We have been basically the thin line between both sides of a divided community for the last 30 years.
The judge in the Kenneth Noy road rage murder trial has told the jury it can consider a verdict of manslaughter. Mr. Noy denies murdering Stephen Cameron on an M25 slip road 4 years ago, but admits stabbing him in self-defence. Forensic scientists are still examining a knife and a metal bar unearthed at the former home of 2 suspects in the Stephen Lawrence murder investigation. The discovery was made after Neil and Jamie Acourt moved out. Neil Acourt has been acquitted of Stephen's murder, which happened 7 years ago. Scientists fear forensic analysis of the weapons may not reveal any new evidence.
We can only just say, well, there's a faint chance, there's a possibility of it working, but really it's pushing the technology to a limit.
Police are investigating the disappearance of weapons from an army base in Wiltshire. 19 pistols and 13 shotguns are missing from the Royal Artillery Armoury at Larkhill. Plans to reunite the 6-year-old Cuban shipwreck survivor Elian Gonzalez with his father have failed. Relatives in America say the boy was extremely afraid of meeting his dad in Washington. Elian is now staying with a nun in Miami. Well, I'll leave you with a look at tomorrow's weather. Windy with scattered showers in the north, a mixture of sunshine and heavy showers in the south. Temperatures between 6 and 10 degrees. We'll have more news at 20 to 11. I'll be back tomorrow at 6. I hope you can join me then.